So this presentation is an outsider's observations on the Singularity Institute of Artificial Intelligence. And it immediately divides the audience, because in any audience, half of you know about what the Singularity is and the others do not and are learning right now. So the way to solve that, perhaps, I thought, is to bring new people and ideas to the presentation so that the idea content is of interest both to people who already knew about the Singularity as well as those who didn't. So, first the people. These are two people that you almost certainly have never heard of. Marcus Hutter is an AI researcher currently working in Australia, who has done some remarkable things in the last few months. And Rebecca Kendrick is an artist living in New York City who's helped me write this presentation. Now, why would I need somebody to help me write it? Well, the SIAI, the Singularity Institute of Artificial Intelligence, is headed by a 32-year-old Eliezer Yudkowsky, and almost everybody working within the organization is younger than that. So most people are in their 20s, and the people taking their mini camps are often in their early 20s. So it seemed to make sense to have a young person to guide me at putting together ideas here. So what about Marcus Hutter? Marcus Hutter has brought some tangible ideas to what the Singularity is like that was never there before. If you've ever heard it discussed before, it's so abstract that you leave the room and you're not left with any visuals, nothing auditory, nothing to remember really. Just a kind of intangible, abstract idea. It's hard to wrap your head around something like that. So Marcus, in an essay published February 28, 2012, has for the first time suggested something very simple, that when the Singularity occurs, it won't be everywhere. There will be areas that are outside the Singularity and inside the Singularity, so it'll look different whether you're on the outside looking in or whether you're actually within the group that's experiencing the technological Singularity. And he has some ideas of what that would look like, what that would feel like on both perspectives, inside and out. Now, if that were all he had done, that would be pretty impressive. But he's also done other things that I'll tell you about in a moment. Rebecca Kendrick runs the Facebook group Elenchus, and is a remarkably insightful 24-year-old woman living in New York City, and she's given me a lot of helpful insights as I wrote this presentation. Okay, the technological Singularity, what is it? It occurs as artificial intelligence surpasses human beings as the smartest and most capable life form on Earth. Technologic development is taken over by machines then, who can think, act, and communicate so quickly that normal humans can't even comprehend what's going on. So the agenda of the world is then in the hands of these super intelligent machines. And they then, the machines, enter into a runaway reaction of self-improvement cycles with each new generation of AIs appearing faster and faster and being smarter and smarter. And from that point onwards, technological advancement is explosive under the control of machines and thus cannot be accurately predicted. And the word singularity comes from analogy with physics, where the events in the event horizon around a black hole are described in that way. And this has a similar unpredictability about it. So that description I've just read was written by the main worker in this field, the best known person working in this field, and that's Ray Kurzweil. And he also founded Singularity University, and I attended the Singularity University Executive Course in the spring of 2010. I was one of the very few full-time university faculty members taking that course. Most of the people there were corporate CEOs and government officials. So it's rather interesting, the difficulty of dissemination of ideas in this area to a large number of people. The ideas I'm talking about today are important. The idea of the singularity inside and out, the importance of the impact of these things on young people. How many people should we try to reach? What would be a target? Well, the TV show The Big Bang Theory is regularly watched by 16 million people in the US alone and 30 million worldwide. They treat of all the same subjects that we're talking about here, they just don't treat them seriously. It's kind of the court jester approach to these subjects. But it gives you an idea of the size of an audience that we could potentially reach. Well, how many people are actually being reached? Each year there's something called the Singularity Summit, which is actually organized by the Singularity Institute of Artificial Intelligence. And the YouTube videos from that meeting max out at about 9,000. So the best known people, the most popular speakers there, 9,000 people end up watching those videos. The videos by SIAI personnel about SIAI have many fewer hits, around 500. Now, I teach a course on technology and the future of medicine at the University of Alberta, and our videos from the course also max out at about 500 views. So there's a huge gap there between the number of people being reached with these messages at the moment and the 16 to 30 million that I feel we could potentially reach. Now, what is the Singularity Institute of Artificial Intelligence doing? They really have two quite different functions. One is they are creating and helping to promote the idea of friendly general AI, so that when we get this super intelligent machine at the end, it will be friendly to humans. Secondly, they are interested in teaching rationality and awesomeness. Now, what is awesomeness? Well, to young people, this makes a lot of sense. Awesomeness is training in how you dress and act and present yourself to the world. So if you're lucky, strangers will smile at you on the street, which maybe never happened to you before. And to some of you in this audience, that seems like it's not something you particularly need, but to young people, this is very popular, this awesomeness and rationality mini camp that teaches them fashion, style, body language, and confidence building. Recently, SIAI has divided these two functions, and so Eliezer Yudkowsky is largely now in charge of the Friendly AI project, and others, for instance, Julia Galef, are in charge of the rationality and awesomeness. So the goals and objectives when we consider friendly AI is expressed by them in the following words. In the coming decades, humanity will likely create a powerful AI. The Singularity Institute of Artificial Intelligence exists to confront this urgent challenge, both the opportunity and the risk. SIAI is fostering research, education, and outreach to increase the likelihood that the promise of AI is realized for the benefit of everyone. And this is the specific logo that they've used, Challenge of Friendly AI. And Eliezer Yudkowsky has for many years been writing about this subject. And it's interesting, the reaction to that. It's commonly felt that he exaggerates the challenge of friendly AI, but maybe that's not so at all. Marcus Hutter suggests there's really a much bigger problem, that there's an element of human insignificance that makes the whole scenario seem much more challenging. Also, Hutter has recently created a general AI which makes the problem seem much more immediate. A while ago, you would have said, well, you know, general AI, an AI that can figure out things from scratch, that is not limited to just one domain, is a precondition to the technological singularity, and we're nowhere near general AI, and so the singularity is not going to occur for a long time. But actually in 2005, Marcus Hutter described this general AI. It is expressible in a single line, and it can do quite remarkable things. It can take arcade games of the 1980s, any of them, and from scratch master the game without being told anything about how that game works. And you can say, well, these are just recreational games, but they do contain many elements of real world human life, such as food, enemies, friends, space, obstacles, objects, weapons. So you can imagine that when this general AI is working out the arcade game, it's sort of preparing itself for bigger challenges. And the next logical test would be for it to function in a virtual world like Second Life and master that. And after that, it would be ready for us, right? It could come out of Second Life into this room, this world, and start to deal with the problems it would encounter here from scratch and without any pre-existing knowledge. And it's been able to master many different games, tic-tac-toe, coon poker, Pac-Man, all from scratch. This graph shows the rapidity with which it learns to play those games perfectly. And you may not think that video games are a good challenge for an AI, but on the other hand, what's really better? They contain elements of the lives of human beings, and they're a good sort of starting point. So Hutter's work shows that we're actually much closer to the technological singularity than you may have thought. And so he talks about what the singularity will be like. So I talked about inside, outside. If you're on the outside looking in, if you're not experiencing the technological singularity itself, but you're looking on from the outside, what do you experience? He's convinced that what you would experience is white noise. There's all sorts of ways to argue this, but they all come down to the fact that there would be this auditory finding of white noise. And if you're inside, if you're actually a part of the singularity occurring, what would you experience? Well, that depends upon what's going on with you. If your ability to receive and process information is speeding up as rapidly as the rate at which the information is coming in, you may not experience anything at all. It may just seem like normal life to you. But no matter what, eventually, because the machines can evolve much more quickly than we can, once they become equal to us, they won't remain equal to us in intellect very long. They'll become much, much smarter. So even if initially our biological brains count for something in the overall mental processes when we combine our biological brains with the machine implant, very soon the processing power of the machine implant will vastly outstrip our biological brains. So our biological brains become insignificant regardless of whether the AI is friendly or unfriendly. So it's sort of like, in a way, what he predicts, being stuck in a kind of dysphoric, eternal youth. Now, you may think that youth is something very desirable, but actually, there's some things about youth that aren't all that good. And one is extreme risk-taking because you feel you don't have much to lose. Why would we feel we don't have much to lose? Well, presumably by then we'd be able to back ourselves up so that we can upload the content of our brains, and if something happens to us, we can be recreated in some other form with the same mental processes if something bad happens. But if you think about it, why would you want to wait until you die to do that? And how would you control what then happens? I mean, my feeling is that people would strategically decide, well, if our mental processes are so fast and efficient now with the brain implants, and if it's so easy to upload our brain consciousness to other entities, why not create those entities now? If you have multiple family members playing in different sports and you're really frustrated because you can't go to all the games, you have to choose between them, well, now you'd be able to be in 3 or 4 places at one time. And in terms of keeping all those lives straight, you'd have the mental capability to do that. What about the very self-important person who believes that he has more to offer the world than anyone else? Well, he might like 1,000 copies of himself. So it seems to me that suddenly this problem of identity and regulation of uploads becomes very, very serious. Now, you may think of young people as being focused on sex. In a sense, reproduction would change entirely here. It'd be much quicker. There's no more waiting for 9 months and 18 years and all the sort of thing that we have to wait now to create a new adult human being. You could presumably do it within seconds. And so there might be considerable focus on creating additional copies of ourselves. And what incentive, I think, would the world have to keep identities straight? The Kim Solez AI, the implant in my brain, as it becomes 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times smarter than me, why would it need to retain my name? Would it have to keep saying, I'm Kim Solez's AI? I don't think so. I mean, that would become irrelevant after a while. So probably you'd go from a name to a number and then nothing. It wouldn't really matter which human being had been the origin of that particular machine. And I think most human thinking about the future assumes that identities will be maintained and that there'll be only one of each one of us. But I question both of those things. I think that our identities might be quickly diluted, and that there might be multiple copies once that was possible. And so what would we do when the world agenda was taken over by machines who were doing these very smart things that we can't even comprehend? What would we do? So there'd be an aimlessness, a lack of sense of purpose. And some of those feelings are not unlike real youth today. There's a sort of dysphoria amongst many young people today. The causes of that are the bad economy, the other things leading to things like the Occupy Wall Street movement and so on. And it seems to me then, if you distill it down to the essence, that the challenge of producing a friendly AI is just a small subset of a much larger problem of creating a friendly world in which humans still have lives of significance and human history is retained and extended. And that's an idea we can all get behind. You would think that the problem of friendly AI should be left to the AI researchers and maybe can only be completely understood by them. But the problem of human significance, I mean, think about Niagara Falls and a single drop of water in Niagara Falls. A single drop of water in Niagara Falls doesn't have much influence over the falls, and it has nothing to do with whether the falls is friendly or unfriendly. It's just a matter of the magnitude, the scale. And so that's what we would be like. It's sort of like the difference now between human being and a grasshopper or a cricket. So don't you think also these are solvable problems? These are not problems that are without solution. And they're important problems. And they carry within them the most extreme good and bad outcomes you can possibly imagine. So what could be good about this world of the future? Well, if these AIs are so smart, they'll be able to figure out all of our problems. They'll be able to cure cancer. They'll be able to do all sorts of things that we can't currently do. Create a post-scarcity world, a world of great abundance, where the things you want, you can have. Right now, if there are things you want, there are multiple barriers, probably, and many of them you'll never be able to have. A world could be created where there's almost nothing that you can't have. On the other hand, this idea of how are our lives going to retain meaning, how are we going to make sense of a world that is under command of a much smarter being, that's a big problem too. But I think we all need to be engaged in ensuring a positive outcome for humanity. And the future is ours to shape. Now, there may be those in this audience who are deterministic and who believe that it's all a matter of fate. But even those people would find it kind of fun to at least pretend that we have free will, even if we don't. And for the rest of us who believe that we do have free will, we just need to get busy ensuring that we shape the future in a positive way. And we need a simple approach to engaging the general public on these matters. So I thought that to raise the spirits of people and stimulate interest in technological change in the future, what would be better than a new holiday? We could have a holiday oriented around the future, Future Day. And actually, we started that this year. This was the only place in Canada that celebrated it. It was March 1st, 2012. I have to admit, it was a small celebration. It was fun. This was the only city where having an enjoyable time seemed to be the main focus. The other places where it was held, it was more like work. It was more like taking a course or doing homework or something, but these other 16 places also celebrated Future Day on March 1st. Melbourne, Sydney, Hong Kong, Berkeley, Houston, Hawaii, Sao Paulo, Thanksgiving Point, Utah, you may not have heard of that before, Brussels, Paris, Los Angeles, Palo Alto, Washington, Carleton, Australia, and Wrocław, Poland. So I was talking before about the 500 people watching the videos from the course that I teach and the 500 people who watched the SIAI videos about SIAI. And there were about 500 people around the world probably who celebrated Future Day this year. But you can imagine that it needs a lot of things before it would spread more widely. It needs pageantry, it needs ceremony, it needs visual identification, smells, tastes, all the sorts of things that you associate with other holidays. Once again, we could try to reach as many people as watch The Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory had a specific episode on the technological singularity on October 1st, 2010. You can still watch that today, of course. Here you see the word singularity circled. And the other cool thing about that episode is that Woz, the other founder of Apple Computers, also had a cameo role in that show. So branding, visual identity, how would we do that? It occurred to me that there's a festival in the Asian subcontinent, the Hindu festival of Holi, H-O-L-I, that has a look and feel completely unlike anything that we experience in this part of the world. They shower bright colored pigments on each other, and it's a very universal and egalitarian holiday. If you have a part of the city where people of many different social classes live, they may have no interaction in the rest of the time, but during Holi they're all sprinkling each other with these brightly colored pigments. This gives you some idea of what this looks like and what the colors are. You can imagine that in the beginning this was very benign. All of the colors came from plants and they were non-toxic, but it's pretty hard to find brightly colored substances from plants. So more recently people have been using colors from paints and other toxic materials. So now, from a medical point of view, there's skin disease and eye disease and lung disease and so on, all brought about by these pigments. But you could find a way to do it safely, and it represents a life experience completely unlike anything that's occurred to any of you probably in this audience. There are other ways to have a highly colorful experience like that. Some of you who've visited my Facebook page know that forever there's only been one poem there. And it has been this poem entitled The Crayola Bomb that is about when something goes wrong in the world, you send all these packets of crayons up into the sky and they come down in parachutes, and the people would smile and give a funny look on their faces and cover the world with imagination. That's how the poem ends, with this idea of adding a great amount of color in a very benign way to the world around you. You can do a similar thing with the Roomba robotic artificial intelligence vacuum cleaner. When you do a time-lapse photograph, you end up very colorful panoply of colors. And you can do the same thing with hot air balloon festivals. And probably it shouldn't stop with visuals. We also need poetry and song. There are 1,000 different songs that could come to mind. One is this one, The Windmills of Your Mind. Round, like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning, on an ever-spinning reel, like a snowball down a mountain or a carnival balloon, like a carousel that's turning, running rings around the moon, like a clock whose hands are sweeping past the minutes in its face. And the world is like an apple whirling silently in space, like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if any of these ideas of how to engage the general public in the future we face have appealed to you, but you may have even better ideas, and I would welcome them. How can we work together to capture the imagination of the public, to start everyone thinking about these matters? We need the mainstream public to regard the future technological singularity as fact, not fiction. And we need to promote organized thinking about the future in universities and beyond to benefit us all. Thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer any questions.